I have to kind of wipe a tear every time you talk. It's wonderful. So thank you for joining us today, and welcome everyone for this breakout session. My name is Jim Engler. I am with the Simplot Games, and I'm a member of the board of directors. And I'd like to welcome you to breakout session 1D with John Register, who is here to share his thoughts on developing a champion mindset. This is the first of 3 breakout sessions with John, with additional sessions at 12:33 and at 1:20 p.m. Mountain Time. The last session will be questions and answer format with John Register and Andre Phillips. And so we will be collecting questions for the 1:20 p.m. Q&A session using the chat function in the Zoom format. But we will not present the questions until the last session, the 3rd session. So John, I'm going to turn it over to you and get you started here. So thank you for joining us, everyone.
All right. Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate that, Jim. Just to know who's in the room right now, I'd love to just, I have Jeff, I got Arnetta. Thanks for shouting out there, Arnetta. Just can we, and Sorsha is here. Can you just open your mics up and let me know where you're from, what your background is, and maybe why you chose this session.
My name is Arnetta Murray, and I'm from Texas. I had 2 twin boys that ran track, and they did well, went to OU one year, and then they just faltered. So I'm trying to re-energize them, if you will, if they're 22. So I'm just trying to get their minds right. So I'm just here to learn so I can pass this on to Larry and Lawrence Murray. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
John, thank you. I'm Jeff Russell. I'm with the Simplot Company out of Boise, and I'm participating as the moderator today. But really enjoying your message and really looking forward to the additional message that you're sharing with us today.
Well, I appreciate you being in, Jeff. Thanks so much for moderating and doing all that you're doing for Simplot Games. Sorsha, are you there? Okay, so Sorsha is probably not unmuted. So here's what I wanted to invite us to think about today when it talks about this championship mindset. I really believe that it does begin with mindset. And so I'm going to be sharing some thoughts that I have personally, as well as what I've heard from a lot of kind of high performance level coaches. The first one is kind of one of mine that I've kind of coined as +1 days. And so these are no particular order, but I thought we might do some work around this and how we can actually figure out the +1 day model. So I'm going to try to skip my screen share here and go up here, and I'm trying to pull these over real quick. And let me see, go back here. There we go. All right. And I think I'm still going. Yep, there we go. So this championship mindset, right? The +1 day mentality. And what really, what is that on the +1 day mentality? So what I like to think about this is +1 days are when coaching staff or athletes are going to do the hard task days. These are days when their opponent will not show up, when opponents do not show up. So maybe that is, it's raining outside, it's windy outside, it's snowing outside, and I'm not going to go outside to do my workout. I'm going to stay in the comfort of my house. I'm going to eat my bonbons, I'm going to eat my Oreo cookies, and I'm just not going to increase on this day. I'm going to choose to stay at home. I believe that if we can look on our calendar or looked on whatever our training model is and push ourselves through those +1 days, our mindset is better to show up on the track when those days actually happen to us in the interim forward. So the story around this is, and how I kind of came up with it, I did a litmus test before I went to the Paralympic Games. And that litmus test was to do 4 times a 100-meter dash. And I would just do it just to kind of see what my heart rate was, check my pulse after it was over with. So I would have a barometer of this long flight I knew I had to get on. I wanted to see what the shock was going to be against on my body from going from Virginia, where my family and I were living at the time, all the way through California, and then over, on that long flight to Sydney, Australia. and then getting off that flight and not even getting rest because we had to get all our bags off, go through processing, then into the village. It was daytime and you had to eat. And then, you know, it was a rough day. It was like I was up for like 37 hours, 38 hours straight with about a 7-hour sleep on the flight. And so the next day after, you know, in Virginia, when I would do those 4 times a run, my heart rate would be about, you know, easy run of 100 meters would be about between 115 and 125. And then I would, you know, take a break and I would get it down to about a 112 resting heart rate after that to get to the next run. When I got to Sydney, what do you think my heart rate was after that 37-hour, 38-hour flight, not getting any sleep, eating some light lunch, going through processing, and I do my first workout on the track and I do my litmus test of those 4x100s. Where do you think my heart rate was at that time? What would be your guess? Jim says 150. Any other guesses of the heart rate? What my heart rate would be after those four runs? No one wants 160. Oh, we're going up. Source just says 160. Does anyone want to go for 300? I'd be dead. 125, says Jeff. My heart rate was 185 beats a minute. 185 beats a minute. What do you think that's doing to my mindset right there? I knew I had to get my workouts in order to get the shock of that flight off my body. And I had 11 days to do it. So that was a good thing. So I immediately went into work. The next day when I got up, I was going to go out for my workout. It was an absolute monsoon downpour. Downpour. So what did I do? With no rain gear, I put on that cotton suit and I went out to the track and I did my workout that I had planned for that day in the downpour rain. And I did my 4 times 100-meter dash, and I did my heart rate resting, and I would do my workouts that I knew I needed to do, my last preparation in that monsoon. Folks thought I was crazy for going out there in that rain. But if you have trained for 3 to 4 years for one moment in time, are we going to let the rain stop us? Will we let that stop us? Or are we going to push into the +1 day? So here's what I invite you to do now. Is for you, I invite you to describe what is a +1 day, whether in your business, on the track, as a coach, as an athlete, you know, mom for your children. What is the +1 day for you? And how do you get people or get yourself into that game set, that championship mindset mode? So I'm going to give you about a couple minutes to think about that. And write, you know, a few things down. And I want to have a little bit of a discussion. You can put it in the chat box, but around, you know, what is it that we need to do to have these +1 days? So what is that for you? So we'll just take about a minute, 90 seconds here. I'll watch the clock, 90 seconds. And I just want to hear what your thoughts are. Then we'll move to the next topic of our discussion. So this is what we're talking about right now, the +1 day. We see the Wallace Spearman here says no Olympic or Paralympic hopeful comes to the training center to train for 2nd place. They figure out how to make a +1 day happen. So so that's that. So how do we have that +1 day? That's just write that down in your notebook, your diary, and what does that mean for you? Take about another 45 seconds. Jim saying, be thankful for yesterday, but drive for being better today. Arnett is saying, +1 is when I surrender and give my best. Yeah. I'd love to hear more about that, Arnett. What is that? What's an example of that and how we're doing that? So we can, you don't have to do it now, but love to hear what your thoughts are on it. Like, what's the story behind what you just said? What else? What else we got out there? The +1 day. So Arnetta, would you talk a little bit more about that? Discipline, mental fitness, yes. Surrender my expectations from my students and kids. Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, basically, we have expectations for our friends, for our kids, and for life. And so when those expectations are not met, we seem to appear to feel that we failed. But now I have learned through a divorce, through my kids not doing what I want, that my expectations is just for me to be the best and be the best example for them, and pray that they get on board. And I surrender my own ideals and wishes for them.
I love that. Yeah, and they see that light and can then gravitate onto it, because that's the second part. A lot of folks, my situation, they said I was totally crazy for going out there in the rain that time, but I was trying to get them to catch the vision too. That hey, you've trained a long time, you're gonna let a little bit of rain stop you? Yes. In the last week of training, are you kidding me? So you gotta push. That's how we reach our peak. Right? That's how we reach the peak. So anybody else that have any thoughts about that? I know, Jim, you said something in here as well. I'll be thankful yesterday, but drive for being better today.
Yeah, John, I think this pandemic has hit a lot of people in a lot of different ways, but I hear too much of it being an excuse for not driving forward and moving forward. And it's becoming too much of a crutch. And my point is driving forward, and let's get not necessarily back to where we were before the pandemic, but embracing the situations we're in and looking at them as new challenges to overcome.
I love it. Don't use COVID as a crutch. I like that alliteration. It's good. I write those down. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Is we don't use things, make excuses. One thing I throw out to the kids all the time is that excuses are monuments of nothingness. They build bridges to nowhere. And people who use these tools of incompetence are masters of nothing. All right. So that's, we can't make the excuses. And I still struggle with it, right? I mean, I got to put my board up here to make sure I'm trying to be on target, on task all the time when I shift over now to a business professional. I just try to take the same things I was doing on the track and shift them over. And what can I do to have a +1 day in my business? So I write those things down and try to really focus in on that. All right. So that's the +1 day model. We're gonna shift now to from the +1 day to how to coach independent athletes. This might be good for you, Arnett, as well. So this one has to deal with coaching independent athletes, or being how do we come up with these independent athletes in the first place. And so this one has to deal with we got David Brown there and Jerome Avery, who's David's total blind, being led by or guided by Jerome Avery, and seeing the value in others before they see the value in themselves. So as we're talking about this slide in particular of how to coach independent athletes, one of the things that I found really valuable when I was at the training center in Chula Vista was attending a coach's session. And the thing they shared with us on what to do was how to set your practices up so athletes can actually operate independent of you. How athletes can actually operate independently from how you show up and how they show up. And what he said to do was a thought, an idea, and this is, you can kind of put in your own terminology here, is to have your practice, pre-practice meeting be an opportunity to hear from everybody. So the coach knows exactly what to do. They have the goal that's set for the day, the objective that is going to be set for the day to meet the goal maybe. And so everybody's in the locker room having this meeting. And before they go out to the track, go out to the arena, wherever they're going to practice, we have those individuals speak back to us. What did they hear us say about the practice? What's going on in their mind about what they heard, about what I communicated? There's oftentimes a huge disconnect, because as we're coming into that mindset moment with the athletes, they could be distracted with a lot of other things that are going on in their head. They've just come in from class. They just had a breakup with somebody. You know, they got the phone with their mom or their dad. There could be 1,000 things that are going on. So asking them the question of, what did you hear us to do today as the goal or the objective of this day in our time together, in this window of time we have? How are we going to hold ourselves accountable to that? Asking them that question, and then receiving the feedback from them on how they want to hold themselves accountable, not necessarily how we want them to hold themselves accountable to us. And what this begins to do, it begins to build the relationship that they have on the field of play. So now they can check themselves without you, as a coach, having to check them. You can sit back and actually do the coaching, where somebody else can actually, the team captain or somebody else that's on the field, say, hey, we're a little off track here. We got to bring it back to center. That's not our focus today. We need to focus back in on the objective that we said we're going to do when we're back in the locker room. And instead of, when the practice is over, saying, see everybody tomorrow, talk to you later, bring everybody back together. And then ask the question, how well do we execute against the objective that we said we're going to do prior to the practice? And let the athletes give you that feedback, because you'll hear them articulate how they thought they did, how they graded themselves, instead of us grading the practice session. And so now we can take that information and we can talk back and forth, because here's what happens when that soccer ball is kicked or that track and field athlete is on the track. They are seeing it in real time. We're seeing it in the past. No matter how we're looking at it, it's always a past thing. Our eyes can't see in the present moment. So we're always seeing something a little bit lagged, a little bit behind them. We want them to act independently despite of how we coach them. We want them to make the right decisions on the court, on the field of play, excuse me, with autonomously to how we're doing. We want them to teach them in the practice session so they can act autonomously on the field of play. And that separates, when we talk about +1 days, that actually separates the mindset of teams. Because if a team is on the field of play looking back to the coach for the next direction, and you have team B that knows the direction, team B has the advantage. So we get them to say that. And then finally, before they go home and they break for home, then we want to ask them the question, how will you prepare for tomorrow's practice? How will you prepare for tomorrow's practice? And I believe that all those, the pre-questions that we have and the response from those pre-questions, the observance on the field of play and how the team dynamics are being played out, and then finally wrapping up and seeing how we met the objectives and giving some thought to what's going on tomorrow, begins to separate teams. Teams that perform at a very high level and teams that are just mediocre, or teams that are poor. So those are quick little things that we can actually do. So in this, I would like to invite us, I don't know if you have Arnett, if you have a way to actually write something down in this, where I'm gonna give you a way to kind of capture some of this and just in a model format. And the model format is, I think I put it down as, give me 1 second, because I want to make sure I have it right. Let me see if I did this right. The games mode, this is the mindset. The model mindset is it's the Eisenhower model. Usually people use it for how well to get their day done. And you can just Google Eisenhower model, it will come up. But if you picture 4 quadrants, and I'll put on the screen right now, just 4 quadrants. Let's put that back here. Right? You have in the upper left-hand corner, what is urgent and what is important. What is urgent and what is important, that is what we do. That is what we do. Then the next box over from that is important but not urgent. That is what we schedule. That's what we schedule. And then the bottom left, we have not important, but urgent. That's what we delegate. That's what we delegate. And then finally, what's not important and what is not urgent, we eliminate. So what we can have folks do is we can have them actually write down every single thing that they do for practice, soup to nuts. What does one practice segment look like? And then begin to fill in the most important things of that practice session. Maybe it's the warm-up, maybe it's the team meeting, whatever it is, whatever they think is most relevant, most important for them, have them write it down. And then after that, put it into these buckets, because they'll quickly begin to see what's most important for them to do and what they're going to focus in on. And they can begin to, I'll put it back up there again for you, Jim. They can begin to write it down, see what's the most important thing to do with it, and what's urgent and what's not so urgent. And this can be done not only on the track, but also in school. They can begin to look at, okay, what do I need to do for classwork? If they have a job, what do I need to do for my job, family? Same thing, we can put these, the model works for it all to see what's the most important thing. And Arnett, I was saying, you know, it's good, I think, maybe for your boys, I think it was Larry and Lawrence, did you say? Okay, so for them, maybe it is, what's the life? Put down what you think in life is the most important thing, and then begin to put it in those boxes right there, because that might give them a clue of what they want to do, how they want to show up. These are great, just little activities, exercises. There are thousands of them out there. This is just one little model that we can go through. Another one I love is the core clarity model. It's a little bit more intensified, but you get a card after it's over, unless you can see the card, because I got my green screen on. You can't really, it's hard to see. But on the card, it says who I am, right? How I show up. And how I show up is when I took the test and all that 400 questions, I show up as a force of nature. That's what a force, I'm a force of nature. And it's because I'm a maximizer. I'm a woo, which means winning others over. I have a strong belief system, not just, you know, maybe like in religion, but more so in, I believe that somebody can achieve. And it's coupled with connectedness. I think that things have to be, I believe things are connected together. They don't operate independently of themselves. And then finally, I'm a developer. It's just not pie in the sky for me. I want to show you the process to how to get to where you need to get to. That's just how I show up. It's nothing that I have to do outside of it, because that's how I'm made up. Other people have different ways on how they show up. And sometimes if we can do a core clarity model and just, you know, put it out there, we can see, it gives us a snapshot of how we might show up to other individuals. And because I don't want on my team, I don't want people like this, right? I'm that. I want other people that have other skill sets and other strengths that they bring. My person who's my PR person, she is just like, oh my gosh, I just brought her on like almost about a month ago. And have you ever seen an aircraft go off an aircraft carrier and they slingshot that plane off the aircraft? It's got that slingshot, pushes the catapult. That's what it feels like she's done to the business. It's like she's pushed, thrown me off the deck of the aircraft carrier. And that's a powerful thing when you get somebody on your team who has their own gifting and can push you in such a way that you never saw yourself. It's like you're just trying to hold on for dear life because you're being catapulted and thrown. So now I'll think, I told you about these right here, this Eisenhower model. I'd love to get your feedback on what you think and how it might be applied in either your life or the life of somebody else that you think might need to hear it. So I'll open the mic up for that, and we can talk about it for the next few minutes here before we get ready to go back into the main room or to our next breakout session.
Well, John, I mean, I've never seen the Eisenhower model before. And and this is kind of an eye opener for me. I think on your core clarity model, I've seen some of that as part of like strength finders.
Yes.
Yep, and that seems really interesting how you can focus it. But this Eisenhower model, I mean, that's really important, especially in business and our dynamic world that we are. We're seeing unprecedented volatility in business. I'm sure Jeff is seeing that as well. But we're seeing it in our side of our business side of things. But this is also something for athletes that I think would be really important. I have a son that's a collegiate athlete right now, and he's going through some injury diversity or adversity right now, and he's basically taken a step back a year or two on his performance due to his injuries, and having him giving him this information and this model to kind of figure out how he needs to work through that adversity and get healed up and get ready to go again. I really appreciate that this Eisenhower model. This is an eye opener for me.
Yeah, and I think we always grow with it, right? It is definitely a business model, and I always try to see how can I adapt it to coaching. How can I give these models earlier to our youth who are coming through that are absolutely brilliant, but they just sometimes don't know how to articulate it in such a way, and this gives them a framework by which to do just that. And now we're speaking the same language. And yes, I mean, business, it's, whew, I mean, sometimes we have to think about what we did, because I got a question from a chamber last Saturday when I was out speaking to a chamber last Friday before last. And they were like, the question I got, I had that came was very relevant topic question. How do I get employees? Because they're all staying home on the government. And they took the what is it, the not the PPP, what's the workers thing, the unemployment.
Yep.
So now they're getting paid more money at home than coming back into work, and so it's very hard for restaurants now to find people. So it goes back again to saying, there's some easy fixes that we can see, but are we really kicking the can down the road for other problems that we might be considering? And is that because we've had other programs, which we either called entitlement or subsidy programs, which are the exact same thing, and we call them things different, so we operate it differently. And now we're all in it, and so we're like, wait a minute, I don't want to be treated like welfare. I want to be treated like subsidy, like I was being helped, right? So now it's all, we're all in it together. So we have to begin to really look, these models really help us see what's the most important thing. How do we get it back? And I have to be responsible for the vote that I had that actually elected the people that made the decisions for us for these things. And so sometimes it may go against political grain, right? But how am I going to look? How am I going to show up? Like I was saying in my keynote, to other people, to society's pressures. Do I show up this way and know this is the right thing to do, or show up this way because my friends say so? It happens. We get bullied all the time. It doesn't stop because we're in 8th grade. We graduate 8th grade. It continues to show up. So yeah, 100%. Great comments. I pray your son's going to be all right, Jim. We had
thank you for that.
Just had an injury last night in our football game, so looks like he's going to be okay. But he wasn't moving for a little bit, and I always freak out a little bit when I see that.
Yeah.
So, all right, Jeff, you anything?
Actually, hopefully I said.
Can you come a little closer to your mic? I think you're dropping off a little.
Can you hear me now?
That's better.
Yeah.
Okay. Just I might call out Sorcha. Hopefully I didn't say her name incorrectly. As said, I think that as a student athlete, it can help me organize and prioritize my time. I think she's referring to the model, which I think is some fantastic feedback. I have seen the Eisenhower model, and I wouldn't say I'm a frequent user of it, but what I find is it's really hard to keep yourself out of that not important urgent box in a business environment with things like email and texting and social media and all the other things that are out there today. So it takes some discipline to kind of work the model. Then the other thing is, I think maybe I could do a little bit better job of maybe using that to prioritize things in my personal life, which I haven't spent that much time thinking about. But I think there's some good opportunity there.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's the first thing I did as well. When I saw the Eisenhower model, was like organizing email, social media, and all that stuff. So what I did was I began. Sorry about that. I'm just trying to get. I think we're about to stop our time together. What I started doing was making sure I delegated what I needed not for me to do, and I have a brother person on the team that she can do all the social stuff, right? I just give her a picture or something. I'd say, I want you to put this up. Here's the wording I want. And then she just does it. And all of a sudden I see it, come up, and we organize the days, and I don't have to worry about it because I know the days that it's supposed to go up, she's got that handled. And I think that helps a lot. So I can delegate that stuff off my plate where I can just kind of create the content and she just runs with it. So we can also do that and help our youth do that as well. So I see we're going to be closing the session in 5 minutes. We have 5 minutes left, so that's good. I think so. That's what I had in both of those segments. And I can keep the mic open now if you want to chat about anything on this topic or what you may have heard in the keynote. I can address as well because I did fly through the Fear to Freedom model really quickly. There's a lot to unpack in that. But if you have any questions around that, definitely ask them now. Nope. Arnett says nope.
Arnett is driving. Be careful there, Arnetta. Oh, you're on mute.
Yes, I am driving. So yeah, I'm just gonna listen. I'm listening.
Okay. So Sorsha says she's a student athlete. Says it can help her organize and prioritize her time. Yeah, I think that's really what the Eisenhower and Sorsha. There's I hope I'm saying your name right too, Sorsha. That model is really good for that. Just kind of helping us organize the day. And there are other models out there as well. You can kind of just do something. A lot of times, what I do, I will once I've identified what was my highest priority task, is I will put a timer maybe for 25 minutes or 50 minutes. I usually try to work in that. And then a 5-minute break or a 10-minute break after each one of those. And I'll put the timer on and I'll just jam on that one topic for just the 25 minutes or the 50 minutes. And I'll make sure that I take my 5-minute break or 10-minute break at the end of that time period. So at least I know in that 25 minutes, I got something done in the day because it's tough. Yeah, no worries. No worries. It is a great idea. Somebody gave it to me, so I'm just passing it on to you. It's another good one. There's a great book out there if you get a chance to read in your own time. It's called it's by Tony Schwartz, and it's called The Way We're Working Isn't Working. The way we are working isn't working. So he contracts it. It's weird, W-E-R-E. The way we're working isn't working. And it does give a few different models of how to work in time. Some of them, I tried them, they just didn't work for me. But we can work in our rhythms of the day. When do we feel most active? When do we feel most tired? When we're tired, we should sleep. When we're active, we should work. And so they did a blind study of those that were A and B test, those that could wake up by an alarm clock in a room, and those that were they could turn the lights on themselves whenever they feel like they were ready to go. And they could eat whenever they want, they could just do it. So they found that we work in about 90-minute cycles, and then we need to take a break. And we can get about 3 of those in a day. We're extremely productive, and then we need some type of a little nap. And most of us don't do the nap. I try to do a nap, but most of us don't take a nap in the middle of the day because we think, oh my gosh, the pressure of society say I'm not going to be productive. So therefore, I'm going to work through power this time that is I'm really kind of sleepy. So that's just another way that I look at things. But there are, like I said, 100 different ways to look at, thousands of ways to look at it.
Yeah, and I think that's probably, John, really important, especially as there's been more working from home. lot more need to be disciplined.
Yeah.
And how you work from home and be productive with distractions. I mean, I have a Labrador Retriever sitting here wanting to be pet right now, and you can be easily distracted, and giving those techniques would be good. It looks like we're about ready to wrap up in 50 seconds here. So, John, I do want to thank you so much.
Yes.
We're gonna conclude this session. We'll be back for the second session in a little bit, but Lisa Woodland's going to force us to go back into the general session, and then we'll come back in a little bit. So thanks,
Is it the
John.
same group or is it a different group?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know for sure either, Jim, but I guess it would be a different group, but I do not know that for a fact.
Yeah. And Jeff, your audio is terrible. If there's any way,
Maybe a headset.
Yeah, or something. You're really scratchy. I think it's pretty tough.
All right. See y'all back in the breakout room or the other room, the main room.